Go hide, nurse. This isn't your war. The words cut through the aid station just as Clara Hayes tightened the last strip of gauze around a wounded Marine's arm. She didn't look up right away. Outside the canvas tent, wind dragged dust across the forward operating base. Radios cracked. Boots moved fast over gravel. Somewhere beyond the West Ridge, artillery rolled like thunder trapped behind stone. Clara pressed 2 fingers to the Marine's wrist. Pulse is steady, she said quietly. Keep pressure here. The Marine nodded, pale but breathing. Only then did Clara turn. The Navy SEAL standing at the tent entrance was young, broad-shouldered, and too confident for the kind of morning they were having. His name tape read Harper. His rifle hung across his chest. His helmet was tucked under one arm. Behind him, 3 other SEALs waited in the dust, watching Clara the way men watch something they have already decided is not useful. Harper's eyes dropped to her right leg. The limp was slight but visible. Old injury. Bad one. Clara saw him notice. Men always noticed the limp before they noticed anything else. You heard me? Harper asked. West Ridge might go hot. You need to get somewhere safe. Clara wiped blood from her hands with a clean towel. I heard you. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in courage and respect, hit like and subscribe. These stories inspire change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Clara. Harper stepped farther into the tent. Look, nobody's saying you're not doing your job. Bandages. IVs. Pain control. That matters. His eyes flicked again to her leg. But if shooting starts, let shooters handle it. The aid station went quiet. A corpsman near the supply shelf stopped counting syringes. A Marine on the far cot opened his eyes. Even the radio operator lowered his pencil. Clara folded the towel once. Then again. No anger crossed her face. That was what made Harper uneasy. Most people defended themselves when insulted. Clara didn't. She only looked past him, toward the thin line of ridge visible through the tent flap. High ground. Broken rock. Bad wind. Perfect place to trap a patrol. Harper mistook her silence for fear. You can barely stand, he said. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Clara reached for her medical pack. It was old, sun-faded, and heavier than it looked. A white medical patch was stitched on one side. On the other side, the fabric was darker where another patch had once been removed. A call sign patch. Harper noticed the empty shape. What used to be there? Clara slung the pack over her shoulder. Nothing you need. One of the SEALs behind him gave a quiet laugh. Harper moved into her path. Where are you going? To check the West Casualty Point. No, you're not. Clara stopped. The 2 of them stood close now. He was taller, stronger, uninjured. Everything about the scene said he had the advantage. But the air didn't agree. Something in Clara's posture had changed. Not much. Just enough. Her shoulders settled. Her breathing slowed. Her gray eyes sharpened with a calm that did not belong in a medical tent. It belonged behind glass. Behind a scope. On a ridge where every heartbeat mattered. Harper frowned. For the first time, he realized he might not be looking at what he thought he was looking at. Then the radio screamed. Base, this is Raider 3. Contact. Heavy contact from the West Ridge. Everyone turned. Static tore through the tent. The voice came again, breathless and broken. We're pinned in the wash. Multiple shooters above us. We have wounded. Repeat, 18 Marines pinned outside the wire. The aid station froze. Harper grabbed his helmet. Command tent. Move. His SEALs rushed out. Clara followed. Harper spun back. No. Stay here. Clara kept walking. The base had already begun to change around them. Marines ran toward the walls. A truck reversed hard near the motor pool. Someone shouted for more ammunition. Dust blew across the yard in hot sheets. Harper stepped in front of her again. This is not a request. Clara looked at him calmly. 18 men are still breathing. That's why my team is going. That's why I'm going too. You're a nurse with a limp. The words landed hard. Several Marines nearby heard them and went still. Clara did not blink. I was a shooter before I was a nurse. Harper almost laughed. Almost. But something in her voice stopped him. Not pride. Not threat. Fact. Another transmission burst through the radio outside the command tent. Raider 3 to base. We need overwatch now. They're firing from the notch above the wash. We can't move. Clara turned toward the west ridge. Her eyes tracked the slope, the wind, the dead space between the base wall and the dry wash. She saw the map before anyone opened one. The firing notch. The false cover. The south alley that looked safe from the ground but would be open from above. Harper saw her studying it. How would you know where they are? Clara's hand tightened on the strap of her medical pack. For half a second, the old call sign came back to her. Angel 6. A name buried in reports, blood, and mountain dust. She had not used it in years. She had not wanted to. Then the radio cracked again. 18 Marines in the kill zone. We need help. Clara stepped past Harper. This time, he didn't stop her fast enough. She looked over her shoulder and said only one thing. Then stop wasting time. The command tent was already crowded when Clara entered. Maps covered the center table. Radios hissed from 3 different corners. A drone operator leaned over a screen that still showed nothing but dust and heat shimmer. Captain Harlan stood at the map with a phone in one hand. Where's my drone feed? Still launching, sir, someone answered. 2 minutes. We don't have 2 minutes. The radio cracked again. Base, Raider 3. 2 wounded. Fire from high ground. We can't see them until they shoot. Clara moved to the edge of the table. No one made room for her. So she read the map upside down. Harper noticed. Captain, he said, still breathing hard from the run, Hayes needs to be moved back to medical. Harlan looked at Clara's leg, then her medical pack. Hayes, why are you here? To help. I need you ready for casualties. You'll have fewer casualties if they don't use the wash. The tent quieted. Harlan stared at her. What did you say? Clara pointed at the map, her finger hovering above the western ridge. They're pinned here. But the main fire isn't coming from the ridge face. It's coming from this notch behind it. That angle lets the shooters hit the wash while staying hidden from the base wall. The drone operator frowned. We don't have confirmation. You won't from that angle. Harper stepped closer. And you know this how? Clara looked at him once. Because terrain tells the truth before screens do. Nobody answered. The radio operator keyed the mic Raider 3, confirm possible fire from rock notch above your position. A burst of static. Then the reply came fast. Confirmed. That's where they are. We can't get eyes on them. Captain Harlan's face changed. Harper looked down at the map again. Clara continued. If your reaction team runs straight west, they'll cross the second kill lane. Harper stiffened. The south alley? Yes. It has cover. It looks like cover from here. From above, it's a hallway. The words landed hard. Outside, gunfire rose over the ridge, faint but steady. Not random. Controlled. Clara heard the rhythm. 3 shooters, she said. The radio operator looked up. How can you tell? They're taking turns. One holds the wash. One watches the wall. One waits for whoever tries to rescue them. Harlan turned to Harper. How fast can your team reach Overwatch? 8 minutes if we avoid the south alley. Clara shook her head. You don't have 8. Harper's jaw tightened. You keep saying that like you know their plan. I know enough. Then say it. Clara looked at the map again. They're not trying to kill all 18 yet. They're holding them in place. For what? Something heavier. The tent went still. Then another radio call came in. Base. Raider 3. We've got dust movement above the saddle. Could be another team. The operator looked at Harlan. Sir. Clara finished it for him. RPG or recoilless rifle. Once they said it, those Marines die where they are. Harlan looked at Clara now like he was finally seeing the whole shape of her. Not the limp. Not the medic patch. The mind behind her eyes. What do you need? Harper turned sharply. Sir, Harlan raised one hand. What do you need, Hayes? Clara looked toward the rear of the tent. An emergency weapons locker stood behind 2 stacked crates. Most people barely noticed it. Clara had noticed it on her first day. The lock type. The dust around the hinge. The long black case behind the carbines. I need the rifle in that case. Rains, one of the SEALs, gave a short laugh. The precision rifle? Clara didn't look at him. Yes. Harper stepped in front of her. No, Clara's eyes moved to his. You already tried that. You're asking to climb into a shooting position with a bad leg. I'm asking to stop 18 body bags. The tent went silent again. Harlan pulled keys from his pocket. Harper lowered his voice. Captain, we don't even know if she's qualified. Clara turned toward him. That rifle is an M2010. The scope mount was over-tightened last month. The elevation turret is 2 clicks off. The suppressor threads need cleaning. And if the match rounds are still in the case, it can reach the notch from the east water tower. No one spoke. Harlan stared at her. How do you know that? Clara's voice stayed calm. Because I cleaned it last week. The keys jingled in Harlan's hand. Then the secure radio behind them crackled. A higher command channel. Base Actual, do you have contact with Angel 6? Clara's hand went still. Only for a fraction of a second. But Harper saw it. Harlan slowly turned. Say again. The operator swallowed. Battalion is asking if Angel 6 is on station. The name moved through the tent like cold air. Rains looked confused. Angel 6? I thought that was an old rescue call sign. Another SEAL muttered, I heard Angel 6 was dead. Harper did not take his eyes off Clara. For the first time that morning, he looked unsure. Clara reached for the radio handset. Tell Raider 3 to hold for 60 seconds. Harlan unlocked the weapons case. The lid opened. Inside lay the precision rifle, dark and clean, waiting in foam. Clara did not grab it fast. She picked up the old data book first. Harper saw her thumb move across the worn pages, like she had opened them 100 times before. Wind notes. Range marks. Coordinates. Old blood-dark fingerprints on one corner. Clara closed the book and lifted the rifle. The motion was quiet. Natural. Like the weapon. Remembered her. Outside, another call tore through the radio. Base. We need Overwatch now. Clara checked the chamber, seated the magazine, and slung the rifle across her chest. Her limp was still there when she turned toward the door. But nobody in the command tent was looking at the limp anymore. Harper stepped aside. Not much. Just enough. Clara passed him without a word. The east water tower stood beyond the motor pool, rusted and exposed under the hard morning light. From there, she would have one narrow line to the ridge. Bad angle. Bad wind. Bad leg. Good enough. Captain Harlan keyed the radio. Raider 3, hold position. Overwatch is moving. The Marine on the other end shouted back. What Overwatch? Harlan looked at Clara as she stepped into the dust. Then he answered. Angel 6 is on station. The water tower ladder was slick with dust and old rust. Clara climbed anyway. One hand above the other. One boot steady. One boot dragging half a beat behind. Below her, Harper stood at the base of the ladder with his rifle raised, scanning the yard and the ridge beyond it. Rains and the other SEALs spread out around the tower, suddenly quiet, suddenly careful. No one joked now. No one told her to hide. Halfway up, Clara paused. Pain moved through her right leg like fire under the skin. She closed her eyes once. Breathed in. Breathed out. Then climbed again. At the top, the wind hit harder. It pulled dust across the platform and made the steel frame groan softly beneath her weight. The west ridge stretched in the distance, broken and sharp under the morning sun. 900 meters. Maybe more with angle. Bad wind crossing left to right. Heat shimmer rising from the wash. Clara lowered herself behind the rifle. She folded her medical pack under the stock, using it as a rest. The canvas was worn soft from years of field use. A medic's bag. A shooter's rest. Harper watched from below. She's not using the bipod, Rains muttered. Clara heard him through the open radio. The platform shakes too much. Rains went quiet. She settled behind the scope. The bass disappeared first. The voices. The engines. The boots. Then the pain moved back too, still there, but smaller. Through the glass, the ridge came alive. Rock. Shadow. Dust. Then movement. One shooter behind a broken slab. Another lower, hidden near the notch. A third farther back, signaling with one hand. Clara keyed her radio. Base actual, I have 3 confirmed shooters. Possible heavy weapon team behind the saddle. Captain Harlan answered from the command tent. Can you take the shot? Clara watched the wind lift dust below the ridge. No, the command tent froze. Harper looked up sharply. Then Clara adjusted the scope a fraction. I can take the first one. She inhaled slowly. Let half of it go. The shooter behind the slab leaned out to fire into the wash. Clara waited. Not for perfect. Perfect did not exist in combat. She waited for honest. The rifle cracked. The sound rolled across the base and slammed into the ridge. Through the scope, the muzzle flash disappeared. For 1 second, nobody spoke. Then Raider 3 shouted through the radio. Base, whoever that was, they just saved our left flank. Clara worked the bolt. No smile. No celebration. She was already searching for the second target. Below, Harper stared up at her. The woman he had called a nurse with a limp had just made a shot most shooters would not attempt from a stable position. And she had done it from a rusted tower, using a medical bag as a rifle rest. Rains whispered, "Who is she?" Harper did not answer, because he was beginning to understand the answer might be worse than his question. Clara shifted left. The second shooter had learned fast. He no longer showed his body. Only a shadow moved near the stone, thin and quick. Smart. But still human. Humans had rhythm. Fear had rhythm too. The trapped Marines began moving in the wash. 2 crawled toward a broken wall while another dragged a wounded man by his vest. The hidden shooter rose for half a second. Clara fired into the rock beside him. Stone burst outward. The shooter dropped back. Miss, Rains said under his breath. Clara's voice came through the radio, calm and cold. Suppression. The 2 Marines crossed the open dirt alive. Rains looked down. Harper didn't. He kept watching Clara. She was not shooting to impress anyone. She was cutting danger away from the living. 1 second at a time. Captain Harlan's voice returned. Angel 6, Raider 3 reports movement behind the saddle. Possible RPG team. Clara moved the scope higher. She found them. 3 men behind broken rock. 1 carrying the tube. 1 carrying ammunition. 1 watching the base. If they reached the firing point, the wash would become a grave. Clara turned the elevation turret. 1 click. 2. She adjusted for wind, then stopped. The wind changed. A torn flag near the west wall snapped in the opposite direction. She corrected. Below, a round hit the tower frame. Metal screamed. The platform shook. Harper spun toward the north ridge. Contact near the wall. Protect the tower. The SEALs moved fast, taking positions around the base of the structure. Clara did not lift her head. Through the scope, the RPG team kept crawling. Captain Harlan shouted over the net. Angel 6, can you still take it? Clara's bad leg trembled against the steel. She pressed her elbow into the platform and pulled the rifle tighter into the medical pack. Quiet. The word was soft. Everyone obeyed. The man with the launcher shifted into view. Only shoulder. Part of the weapon. Less than a second. Clara fired. The heavy weapon team scattered. The launcher dropped against the rocks. The ammunition carrier crawled backward, leaving the rounds behind. The command tent erupted. RPG team broken. Raider 3 move now. But Clara did not celebrate. Celebration made people late. The second shooter near the notch rose again, using the noise to aim at the Marines carrying their wounded. Clara saw the muzzle shadow stretch. She moved the rifle. Small correction. Half breath. The shot cracked. The ridge went still. Raider 3 came through the radio, voice shaking. We're moving. Keep that Angel on the gun. Clara blinked once at the name. Angel. She hated it. Loved it. Needed it. Buried it. None of that mattered now. 18 Marines were still in the dirt. And some of them were still breathing because her hands had not forgotten what the rest of her had tried to leave behind. Another round struck the tower. This one hit close. A hot fragment cut across Clara's brow. Blood ran down near her eye. Harper shouted from below. Clara. I'm fine. You're hit. I said I'm fine. Her voice left no space for argument. Harper swallowed it. For the first time that day, he obeyed her without being told twice. Clara wiped the blood with her sleeve and returned to the scope. Raider 3 was moving in pairs now. 4 Marines across. Then 6. Then 8. The smoke near the wash began to thin. Enemy fire grew sharper. They were adapting. So was she. Clara keyed the radio. Raider 3, do not bunch at the wall. 2 meters apart. Crawl low. Move only on my mark. A Marine answered, copy, Angel 6. She found the next firing lane. Waited. Fired into stone. 2 more Marines moved. Then another. Then another. Each shot bought seconds. Each second bought distance. Below, Harper lowered his rifle for half a breath and looked up at the tower. The nurse was bleeding. The sniper was steady. And the woman was saving everyone. By the time the sun cleared the ridge, half of Raider 3 had made it out of the kill zone. 9 Marines safe. 9 still pinned. Clara worked the bolt again. Her leg shook badly now. The tower groaned beneath her. The ridge answered with another burst of fire. She settled back into the scope. Base actual, she said. Harlan answered immediately. Go, Angel 6. Tell them to keep moving. A pause. How long can you hold the ridge? Clara watched the next shooter appear behind the rocks. Her finger found the trigger. As long as they keep breathing. The next shot came from the north ridge. It hit the water tower below Clara and rang through the steel like a warning bell. Harper dropped behind a concrete block. North ridge, he shouted. They're flanking the tower. Rains and the other SEALs turned fast, rifles up, scanning the rocks beyond the outer wall. A second round struck the tower frame. Dust shook loose from the platform. Clara did not move away from the scope. 9 Marines were still pinned in the wash. That was the number. Not the bullets hitting the tower, not the blood sliding near her eyebrow, not the pain burning through her right leg. 9. Raider 3, Clara said into the radio. Move in. Pairs. Do not bunch at the retaining wall. A breathless voice answered. Copy, Angel 6. We still have wounded in the open. I see him. Through the scope, Clara found the Marine lying near the broken culvert. He was crawling with one arm, slow and exposed. 2 other Marines wanted to reach him, but the shooter in the notch was waiting for exactly that. Clara shifted the rifle. The tower shook again. Harper looked up. Clara, they've got your position. They've had it for 30 seconds. Then come down. No, the answer was quiet. Final. Harper clenched his jaw and fired toward the north ridge. Rain spotted movement near a dark shelf of rock. 11 o'clock. Narrow crack. The SEALs opened up together. Controlled bursts. No panic. The flanking fire dipped for 3 seconds. 3 seconds was enough. Clara fired into the rock above the notch. Stone cracked and spilled downward in a cloud of dust. The shooter's view disappeared. Raider 3, Clara said. Move now. 2 Marines lunged forward, grabbed the wounded man by his vest, and dragged him behind the culvert. Rounds snapped above them, late and wild. The radio erupted. We got him. He's breathing. Clara closed her eyes for half a second. Then opened them. 8. The heavy weapon team behind the saddle was moving again. They had lost their first position, not their intention. 1 man crawled with the launcher. Another dragged ammunition behind him. They were lower now, harder to see, using the broken ridge like a shield. Clara turned the elevation turret with blood-slick fingers. Her bad leg trembled so hard the rifle moved with it. She stopped, breathed, shifted her weight. Pain was weather. She could not stop it, but she could read it. Base actual, she said. Heavy weapon team relocating. Lower saddle. Captain Harlan answered from the command tent. Can you break them? Stand by. Harper heard the strain in her voice. It was slight, but real. He looked up the ladder and saw blood darkening the side of her uniform near the old injury. Rains, he said, keep that north ridge down. Trying. Try harder. The north ridge fired again. A round struck the railing beside Clara's left hand. Metal. Sparked. A fragment cut across her knuckle. She ignored it. Through the scope, the ammunition carrier shifted into view for less than a second. Not the launcher. Not the shooter. But enough. Clara fired. The round struck the stone beside the ammunition bag. Dust exploded. The carrier dropped the rounds and scrambled backward. The man with the launcher abandoned the firing point. No fireball. No dramatic blast. Just a weapon team suddenly unable to finish its job. RPG team broken, the drone operator shouted. Harlan grabbed the radio. Raider 3, move your next pair. 2 more Marines crawled from the wash. Then 2 more. Enemy fire chased them, but Clara kept cutting the angles apart. 1 shot into the notch. 1 into the slope. 1 close enough to a hidden spotter that his antenna snapped and vanished behind rock. Not every shot was meant to hit a man. Some shots bought 3 seconds. Some bought 10 yards. Some bought a life no one would ever count. Harper began to understand that. This was not shooting for glory. This was surgery at distance. Then the tower took another hit. The platform lurched. Clara's shoulder slammed into the railing. Her rifle skidded off the medical pack. For one terrible second, Harper thought she would fall. Clara. She caught the rifle with one hand and pulled it back. I'm still on glass. Her voice was thinner now. Below, Harper's face hardened. Northridge suppress. The SEALs fired again. Marines along the wall joined them. The base, which had mocked and doubted and stared, now formed a shield around the woman on the tower. Clara found the wash again. 3 Marines still pinned. 1 was moving backward, firing to cover the others. 1 dragged a wounded man. 1 had stopped in the open, frozen between fear and exhaustion. Clara keyed the radio. Raider 3, tell the Marine in the open not to look up. A voice shouted through the radio. Do not look up. Crawl. The Marine moved. 1 yard. The notch shooter shifted. Clara held. 2 yards. The Marine's hand reached the edge of cover. The shooter committed. Clara fired. The notch went silent. Hands grabbed the Marine and pulled him behind the wall. For a moment, there was only static. Then Raider 3 came through, voice breaking. Base, that's 18. All 18 accounted for. Repeat, all 18 Marines are out of the kill zone. The command tent erupted. Marines shouted along the wall. Rains lowered his rifle and breathed for the first time in what felt like an hour. Harper looked up at the tower. Clara. They're out. No answer. Angel 6, they're safe. Still nothing. His smile vanished. He climbed. Fast. The ladder was slick with water from the punctured tank and mud from the dust below, but he didn't slow down. At the top, he pulled himself onto the platform. Clara was still behind the rifle. Blood marked her brow. Her right leg was shaking badly. Her left hand had slipped from the stock, but her eye was still pointed toward the ridge. Harper dropped beside her. They're safe, he said. All 18. Clara blinked slowly. How many? All 18. Only then did her hand leave the rifle. Her body sagged against the railing. Harper caught her before she fell sideways. For a moment, he had no words. He saw the blood. The rifle. The medical pack. The woman he had told to hide. I'm sorry, he said. Clara turned her head just enough to look at him. Her voice was barely louder than the wind. Don't be sorry. Harper leaned closer. Clara's gray eyes stayed clear. Be better. The words went out over the open radio. Down the tower. Across the command tent. Into the ears of every Marine, every SEAL, every man who had watched her limp and mistaken it for weakness. No one spoke. Because it was not a request. It was an order. And this time, they all heard it. Harper helped Clara down the ladder. Not by carrying her. She wouldn't allow that. He climbed first, 1 rung below her, 1 hand ready in case her leg failed. Clara followed slowly, rifle slung across her chest, jaw tight, blood drying near her eyebrow. When her boots touched the ground, the yard went silent. Marines stood near the wall, staring. SEALs lowered their rifles. Captain Harlan came out of the command tent, still holding the radio handset. All 18? Clara asked. Harlan nodded. All 18. Too critical. For wounded. No losses. Clara closed her eyes. For 1 second. Only one. Then she opened them and reached for her medical pack. Harper stepped in front of her. No, Clara looked up. His voice changed. Not commanding now. Concerned. You're bleeding. So are they. You're injured. I know. A corpseman ran up with a trauma bag. Ma'am, let me check your leg. Clara started to wave him off, but her hand didn't rise all the way. Harper saw it. So did everyone else. For the first time that morning, Clara Hayes looked less like a legend and more like a person who had spent everything she had and was still trying to pay more. Harper took the rifle from her hands carefully. This time, he asked with his eyes first. She let him. The small permission hit harder than any salute. Inside the aid station, Raider 3 began arriving. Some walked. Some limped. Some were carried on stretchers. Dust covered their faces. Blood marked their uniforms. But they were alive. One young Marine on a stretcher turned his head as he passed Clara. Was it you? He whispered. Clara stood beside the cot while the corpseman wrapped her reopened leg wound. Was what me? The voice, he said. On the radio. Clara didn't answer. The Marine's eyes filled with tears he was too tired to hide. You told me not to look up. Clara looked at him then. You listened. I thought I was dead. You weren't. Because of you. Clara tightened her jaw. No. Because your team kept moving. The Marine tried to lift his hand. A weak salute. Clara stopped him gently. Save your strength. But he held the salute anyway. Across the room, Harper watched in silence. A few hours earlier, he had told this woman to hide. Now wounded Marines were saluting her from stretchers. Captain Harlan entered the aid station with a field tablet in his hand. His expression was different. Careful. Heavy. Hayes, he said. Clara looked over. Battalion confirmed the call sign. The room quieted. Rains stood near the entrance, helmet in hand. Harper turned slowly. Harlan read from the screen. Clara E. Hayes. Former Marine Scout Sniper. Combat Medic Cross-Trained. Joint Rescue Operations. Call sign, Angel 6. Medically reassigned after blast injury. No one moved. The words filled the tent like smoke. Former Sniper. Combat Medic. Angel 6. The limping nurse they had dismissed was the same name whispered through old rescue reports. Rains looked at Clara. I thought Angel 6 was dead. Clara's face did not change. Parts of her were. The answer killed every whisper in the room. Harlan lowered the tablet. There's more. Clara's eyes hardened slightly. Don't. But Harlan had already seen enough to understand. He stopped reading. That choice mattered. Harper stepped closer. I was wrong about you. Clara looked at him. Yes. The answer was simple. Clean. It did not comfort him. It was not meant to. Harper swallowed. I judged the limp. I judged the medic patch. I thought I knew what you could do before I knew who you were. Clara said nothing. That silence made him finish honestly. I put my pride between you and 18 Marines. Rains lowered his eyes. So did I. Another SEAL spoke from the doorway. Me too, ma'am. Clara looked around the aid station. At the wounded. At the medics working. At the SEALs standing like boys who had finally understood the cost of a careless word. Then she said, being wrong is common. Harper met her eyes. Clara's voice stayed quiet. Staying wrong is a choice. No one answered. Outside, the medevac helicopter approached, its rotors beating dust into the air. The sound pulled everyone back to work. Clara pushed herself up from the cot. The corpseman protested. Ma'am, you need to sit. Clara pointed to the nearest wounded Marine. He needs pressure on that dressing. You need fluids ready. And someone needs to clear a path to the landing zone. The corpseman froze. Then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Harper moved immediately. What do you need from me? Clara looked at him for a moment, measuring whether the question was real. Then she handed him an evacuation card. Don't lose this. Stay with Corporal Wilkins until he's on the bird. If he stops talking, call me. Don't shake him. Don't move him. Harper took the card like it weighed more than paper. Yes, ma'am. He went to the cot. The Marine there was pale, barely conscious. Harper sat beside him. "Wilkins, look at me." The Marine blinked. "You a SEAL?" "Yeah, thought you guys were taller." Harper almost laughed. "Stay awake, and you can insult me again." Across the room, Clara heard it. Good. Talking meant breathing. Breathing meant time. The aid station became motion again. Rains opened supply packs without being asked twice. Another SEAL carried stretchers. Marines cleared the entrance. Captain Harlan pushed back the curious and sent useful hands inside. No speeches. No ceremony. Just men doing better than they had done that morning. When the helicopter landed, the first stretchers moved out. Wilkins was loaded last. Harper walked beside him all the way to the ramp and handed the evacuation card directly to the flight medic. Then he returned to Clara. "Done." She nodded. No praise. But Harper stood straighter anyway. The crew chief called for Clara next. She resisted for 3 seconds. Then Captain Harlan spoke. "That's an order, Hayes." Clara looked at him. "You pulling rank on medical?" "Only because medical is too stubborn to treat herself." For the first time all day, a faint almost smile touched Clara's face. Almost. She picked up her medical pack. Harper reached for it, then stopped. "May I?" Clara studied him. This time, he had asked. After a moment, she handed him the pack. Together, they walked toward the helicopter. Slow enough for her injury. Steady enough for her dignity. At the ramp, Harper gave the pack back. Then he stood at attention. Rains joined him. So did the other SEALs. One by one, Marines near the landing zone turned toward Clara. No one cheered. No one shouted. They simply saluted. Clara stood there with a bandaged leg, blood on her sleeve, and dust across her face. Not polished. Not perfect. Not asking for anything. She returned the salute. Not for herself. For the 18. For every name behind the call sign. As the helicopter lifted, Harper looked up through the dust. That morning, he had seen a limp and thought weakness. Now he saw the truth. Respect was not demanded. It was earned. And Clara Hayes had earned it one impossible shot at a time. The helicopter carried Clara east, but the base did not return to normal. Men moved differently after she left. At the aid station, no one blocked the entrance to stare anymore. Marines carried supplies without being asked. A private who had joked earlier about the limping nurse now stood quietly beside a wounded woman from Raider 3, holding pressure on her shoulder until a corpsman relieved him. Harper noticed. So did Rains. Small things. But small things were where respect either lived or died. Inside the command tent, Captain Harlan sat before the after-action report. The title was simple. West Ridge Engagement. He stared at the screen, then at Harper. "You were first contact with Hayes this morning." Harper nodded. "I was." "Then you write your part clean." Harper knew what that meant. No hiding. No soft language. No turning arrogance into confusion. He sat at the field laptop and began typing. At 0827 local time, Raider 3 reported heavy contact from elevated positions west of the base. 18 Marines were pinned in the dry wash. Initial response planning failed to identify the primary firing notch and secondary kill lane. He stopped. Rains stood behind him, reading. Harper continued. Medical personnel Clara E. Hayes correctly assessed enemy position before drone confirmation. Her recommendation was initially challenged by SEAL personnel, including the undersigned, due to visible injury and incorrect assumptions about her role and capability. Rains exhaled. "You're putting that in?" Harper didn't look up. "Yes. That'll make us look bad." "It should." The tent went quiet. Captain Harlan said nothing, but his eyes stayed on Harper with something close to approval. Harper kept typing. Hayes accessed the M2010 precision rifle and established overwatch from the East Water Tower. Despite enemy fire on her position and aggravation of a prior blast injury, she maintained fire control, broke an enemy heavy weapon team, and directed Raider 3's movement by radio. He paused again. The next line mattered. Her actions enabled the extraction of all 18 Marines from the kill zone. No legend. No myth. Just the truth. Rains looked toward the damaged tower outside. The railing was bent. The tank still leaked slowly. The platform where Clara had fired was marked with dust, water, and blood. I keep hearing what I said, Rains muttered. Harper nodded. Me too. A young Marine stepped into the tent, holding something in both hands. Sir, we found this in the aid station storage. Thought you should see it. He placed a faded patch on the table. White background. Blue border. A small field cross with 6 wings around it. Angel 6. No one touched it. For a moment, the patch seemed heavier than the rifle had. Harlan looked at Harper. She never wore it? No, Harper said. I don't think she wanted the name. Why? Harper remembered her voice. Parts of her were. He looked back at the report. Because people turn survivors into stories. Stories forget the cost. At the field hospital, Clara awoke under clean white lights. Her first instinct was to reach for the rifle. Her second was to check her leg. The third was the one that mattered. How are the Marines? She asked. A nurse beside the bed looked up from her chart. All 18 made it. 2 are in surgery. The rest are stable. Clara closed her eyes. All 18. The words did not erase the old names. Nothing did. But they stood beside them. 18 living names. That was enough for now. A doctor entered with a tablet. Clara Hayes. She opened one eye. Depends who's asking. You reopened a serious blast injury, lost blood, took fragmentation, and climbed a water tower anyway. I was busy. You're also impossible. I've heard that. The nurse hid a smile. The doctor didn't. You're off that leg until further evaluation. No, yes. I have patience. You are the patient. Clara looked away, unimpressed. Doctors always said that like it settled something. A knock came at the door. Captain Harlan stepped in first. Harper followed, carrying Clara's medical pack and data book. Rains waited outside the doorway, helmet in hand, looking like a man about to face judgment. Clara's eyes went straight to the book. You read it again? Harper shook his head. No, good. He placed the book and pack beside her bed, close enough for her to reach. Not at the foot. Not across the room. Beside her. Clara noticed. Harper saw that she noticed. I filed my part of the report, he said. Did you? Make me sound like a ghost story. No, good. I wrote what happened. Including what I did wrong. Clara studied him. You didn't have to include yourself. Yes, Harper said. I did. That answer stayed in the room. Accountability did not erase disrespect. But it was the first real step away from it. Clara looked toward the door. Why is Rain standing out there like he's waiting for execution? Harper almost smiled. He wanted to return something. Clara sighed. Let him in. Rains entered slowly and placed the Angel 6 patch on the small table beside her. I found this, he said. Didn't show it around. Clara looked at the patch for a long time. Angel 6. A name made from radios, smoke, fear, and men who needed hope when the battlefield gave them none. She picked it up. Did you tell stories with it? No, ma'am. Good. Rain swallowed. I laughed when you asked for the rifle. Yes. I thought you were a liability. Yes. I was wrong. Yes. He nodded, accepting every word. I'm sorry. Clara ran her thumb once over the faded stitching. I saved the Marines, she said. You corrected yourself. Rains looked up. That matters. It can. Harper watched the exchange in silence. Clara opened her data book and slid the patch behind the old photograph. Not on her uniform. Not yet. Maybe never. But no longer hidden loose in a box. Captain Harlan stepped closer. Raider 3 asked to visit when cleared. No, I told them you'd say that. Then why ask? They asked me to ask anyway. Clara looked tired enough to sleep for a week, but something softened in her eyes. Stubborn Marines. Alive stubborn Marines, Harlan said. That almost made her smile. Almost. At the base, evening settled over the West Ridge. The South Alley Clara had warned them about was being reinforced. Marines moved barriers under Harper's direction. No one argued when he corrected the angle. No one complained when he made them shift the cover twice. He saw it now. The false protection. The open line from above. The mistake Clara had seen before anyone else. A radio message arrived from the hospital just after sunset. From Hayes, tell Raider 3 to keep their heads down next time. And tell Harper the South Alley is still exposed. Rains laughed quietly. She's correcting you from a hospital bed. Harper looked at the alley. Then at the ridge. Then at the men moving the barriers. He keyed the radio. Message received. Tell Hayes we're fixing it. He paused. And tell her the 18 are still breathing. The reply came back after a moment. She said, good. One word. No praise. No emotion. But from Clara Hayes, good men enough. The next morning, Harper stood at the base of the repaired water tower before transport. Rains joined him. Then the younger SEAL. Then the rest of the team. No one ordered it. They simply stood there, looking up at the platform where a woman they had dismissed had held a ridge alone. Harper opened his field notebook and wrote 2 words on the first page. Judge last. Rains saw it. That from Hayes? Harper shook his head. No. From what I should have known. The helicopter arrived as sunlight touched the ridge. As the SEALs loaded their gear, Harper looked back at the base one final time. The aid station was already working. The South Alley was being fixed. The water tower stood scarred but steady. And somewhere east, in a hospital bed, Clara Hayes was probably arguing with a doctor and asking about everyone but herself. Harper stepped onto the helicopter. He had arrived at that base believing confidence was enough. He left knowing humility kept people alive. Clara Hayes had not demanded respect. She had earned it under fire. Not with speeches. Not with rank. But with 18 Marines breathing, a rifle on a rusted tower, and the courage to stand when everyone told her to hide. From that day forward, whenever someone on that base saw a limp, a scar, a quiet voice, or a uniform they thought they understood, they remembered the West Ridge. They remembered the nurse. They remembered Angel 6. And they judged last. 3 days later, Clara Hayes was still arguing with doctors. The field hospital room was small, clean, and too quiet for her taste. No radios. No engines. No boots running across gravel. Just white walls, beeping monitors, and nurses who kept telling her to rest like rest was an order she understood. Clara sat upright in bed with her right leg wrapped and elevated. Her data book lay on the table beside her. The Angel 6 patch was tucked inside it, hidden behind the old photograph. A nurse entered with a clipboard. You have visitors. Clara didn't look up. No, the nurse smiled slightly. That's what Captain Harlan said you'd say. Then he should have saved you the walk. They came anyway. Clara closed the data book. How many? 3. Wounded. 1 walking wounded. 2 cleared. Clara sighed. 5 minutes. The door opened. Harper entered first, then Rains. Behind them came a young Marine with 1 arm in a sling and dust still caught in the seams of his boots, like he had refused to let anyone clean the war off him yet. His name tape read Torres. Clara noticed the way he stood. Careful. Stubborn. Alive. You're Raider 3, she said. The young Marine nodded. Lance Corporal Mateo Torres, ma'am. You should be resting. So should you. Harper looked away, wisely saying nothing. Clara studied Torres for a moment. You were the last group out. Yes, ma'am. You froze in the open. Torres swallowed. Yes, ma'am. You crawled after that. Yes, ma'am. Good. The word hit him harder than praise. He looked down, then reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a small laminated photo. His fingers shook slightly as he held it. My brother told me about you. Clara's face changed. Not much. But Harper saw it. Torres stepped closer. Daniel Torres. 3rd Battalion. Kandahar route. 7 years ago. The hospital room seemed to shrink around the name. Clara looked at the photo. 2 young Marines stood shoulder to shoulder in dress blues. Same eyes. Same jaw. 1 older, 1 younger. She did not touch it. Daniel made it home, she asked quietly. Mateo nodded. Yes, ma'am. He's got 2 kids now. Coaches baseball. Still burns every steak he cooks. For a second, Clara said nothing. In her mind, Daniel Torres was still smoke-covered, bleeding, and 22, pressing that same photo into her hand while gunfire snapped against rock. Tell my brother not to do anything stupid. Clara looked back at Mateo. You didn't listen to him. No, ma'am. He asked. Me to tell you not to do anything stupid. Mateo's mouth trembled into a small smile. That sounds like him. Harper stood silent near the wall. Rains lowered his eyes. They had heard the legend of Angel 6. But this was not legend. This was what survived after reports closed and metals gathered dust. A brother. A family. A bad steak on a backyard grill. Mateo straightened as much as his injury allowed. He said a medic with a rifle kept him alive until extraction. He said she refused to leave the ridge. Clara looked toward the window. Your brother's team held their line. That's what he said you'd say. Clara almost smiled. Almost. Mateo lifted his good hand and saluted her. Thank you for saving him, he said. And thank you for saving me. Clara returned the salute slowly. This time, her hand shook. Not from pain. From the weight of two brothers standing alive on opposite sides of the same war. When Mateo lowered his hand, Clara's eyes were steady again. Go home when they let you, she said. Tell Daniel he still owes me a decent field coffee. Mateo nodded. Yes, ma'am. The nurse appeared at the door. Time. Mateo stepped back, but Harper remained. Clara noticed. What? Harper took a folded paper from his pocket. Raider 3 asked me to read something. Since you refused visitors. I accepted one. They sent backup. Clara's eyes narrowed. Harper unfolded the paper. Ma'am, we don't know what to call you because you don't seem to like Angel 6, and calling you just Hayes feels too small. Clara looked annoyed already. Harper continued anyway. So we'll say this. 18 Marines are alive because you saw the battlefield clearly when everyone else saw dust. You gave orders when we were scared. You fired only when needed. You never made it about yourself. Rains looked toward the floor. Harper's voice slowed. We are still breathing. We won't waste that. The room stayed quiet. Clara looked at the blanket over her bandaged leg. For once, she had no sharp answer ready. Finally, she said, tell them to prove it. Harper folded the note. I will. No, Clara said. Don't tell them. Make sure they do. Harper nodded. Yes, ma'am. He hesitated, then added, the south alley is fixed. Clara looked up. Show me. Harper pulled out his phone and showed her a photo from the base. New barriers, shifted angles, covered approach, no false lane from the ridge. Clara studied it. Then she handed the phone back. Better. Rains exhaled like he had been waiting for a verdict. That's high praise from you, isn't it? Clara looked at him. It's not praise. Rains nodded quickly. Understood. Harper almost smiled. Clara caught it. You find something funny? No, ma'am. You're lying again. Yes, ma'am. This time, Clara did smile. Small. Brief. But real enough that both SEALs stood a little quieter afterward. When they left, Harper paused at the door. Hayes. She looked at him. I used to think respect was something you proved by standing taller than everyone else. Clara said nothing. Harper continued. I was wrong. Yes. He accepted the clean answer. Then Clara added, standing taller is easy. Harper waited. Clara's voice was calm. Seeing clearly is harder. He nodded once. Outside the room, Mateo Torres waited in the hallway. Harper and Rains walked with him toward the exit, neither man speaking for several steps. Finally, Mateo said, She always like that? Harper looked back at the door. Sharp. Honest. Harper thought about the tower, the rifle, the report, the words that had cut deeper than blame. Be better. Yes, he said. I think that's the point. Back inside, Clara opened her data book. She looked at the old photograph. Then at the Angel 6 patch. After a long moment, she wrote one new line beneath the last empty page. West Ridge. 18 alive. She closed the book. No speech. No ceremony. Just a record. The kind that mattered. 1 week after the West Ridge, the story had already started changing. At first, it was simple. A nurse saved 18 Marines. Then it became bigger. A ghost sniper returned. Angel 6 came back from the dead. A limping medic held off an army alone. Clara Hayes hated every version. She sat in the field hospital courtyard under early morning light, wearing a clean uniform and a stubborn expression. Her right leg was braced. A cane leaned against the bench beside her and used. On principle. Her data book rested in her lap. Captain Harlan stood nearby with 2 coffees. "Battalion wants a ceremony," he said. "No, that's what I told them you'd say." "Then why are you telling me?" "Because they want me to try again." Clara took the coffee. Try failed. Harlan almost smiled. "They also want a quote." "For what?" "The commendation packet." Clara looked out across the courtyard. A group of wounded Marines moved slowly along the walkway, with physical therapists. Some had bandaged arms. Some had crutches. All of them were alive. "Write this," Clara said. Raider 3 followed instructions under fire. "That's why they came home." Harlan sighed. "That is not what they mean. It's what they're getting." Before he could answer, Harper and Rains entered the courtyard. They looked different now. Less polished. More careful. Harper carried a folder in one hand. Rains carried nothing, which somehow made him look more nervous. Clara looked at them. "You two lost." Harper shook his head. "No, ma'am. We came to show you something." He handed her the folder. Inside was a revised training memo from the base. New casualty movement routes. Updated overwatch positions. Corrected blind spots. South alley removed as emergency cover. Clara read silently. Harper waited. Rains waited harder. Finally, Clara closed the folder. "Better." Rains released a breath. Harper nodded. "That word is starting to mean a lot." "It should." Clara handed the folder back. Harper did not leave. She noticed. "What else?" He looked toward the walkway, where Mateo Torres was helping another wounded Marine with his crutch. "Raider 3 asked us to attend their debrief." "Good. They asked for you too." "No, Harper expected that. They said you'd refuse. They're learning. They also said to tell you Daniel Torres called." Clara's expression shifted. Harper continued. "He said the coffee still tastes bad, but he's willing to make it." For a moment, Clara looked away. The morning light caught the edge of her face. For once, she did not look like she was fighting pain. She looked like she was fighting memory. Then she nodded once. "Tell him I'll judge that myself." Harper smiled slightly. "Yes, ma'am." A silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable. Earned. Rains cleared his throat. "I need to say something." Clara turned to him. "That usually gets people in trouble." "Yes, ma'am." He stood straighter. "When I first saw you, I saw the limp. Then the medic patch. Then everything else after that." He paused. "I'm trying to reverse that order." Clara studied him. "That's not enough." Rains nodded. "I know." "Good." Harper looked down at the folder in his hand. "There's one more thing." Clara waited. "The SEAL team is changing our intake brief." First line. He opened the paper and read it. "Capability is confirmed by action, not appearance." Clara was quiet. Harlan looked at her, expecting another correction. She gave one. "Add this, assumptions get people killed." Harper wrote it down immediately. No argument. That mattered more than agreement. A nurse approached from the doorway. "Staff Sergeant Hayes, doctor wants you inside." Clara did not move. The nurse folded her arms. "He said I should tell you this is not optional." Clara stared at her. The nurse stared back. Harper wisely looked elsewhere. Finally, Clara reached for the cane. Before Harper could step forward, he stopped himself. Clara saw it. "You're learning," she said. "I'm trying." "That's different." She stood slowly, pain tightening her jaw. Harlan offered no help. Rains offered no pity. Harper simply picked up her data book from the bench and handed it to her when she was steady. She took it. "Thank you." The words were small. Harper understood they were not small at all. As Clara walked back toward the hospital, Mateo Torres called from the walkway. "Hayes." She turned. Mateo raised his good hand. 18 still breathing. Clara looked at him, then at the wounded Marines around him. A faint smile touched her face. Keep it that way. The courtyard laughed softly. Not at her. With her. For the first time, the name Angel 6 did not feel like a weight pressing on her chest. It felt like a radio call answered in time. Harper watched her disappear through the hospital doors. Then he looked at Rains. She won't let them make her a legend. Rains nodded. No. Harlan took a sip of coffee. Then don't. Harper looked back at the training memo in his hand. Tell the truth instead. That afternoon, the updated memo was sent across the base. No dramatic title. No myth. Just one line at the top, added in black ink. Assumptions get people killed. Respect keeps them alive. At the bottom, Harper wrote 2 more words in his own notebook. Judge last. And this time, he understood that it was not a slogan. It was a discipline. At dawn, Clara Hayes left the hospital courtyard with a cane in one hand and her data book under one arm. She hated the cane. Everyone knew it. No one said it. A transport Humvee waited near the curb. Captain Harlan stood beside it with Harper, Rains, and 2 Marines from Raider 3. The morning light was soft, gold across the dust, quiet enough to make the last week feel almost unreal. Almost. Mateo Torres stepped forward first, his arms still in a sling. My brother said he'll make that coffee when you're stateside. Clara looked at him. Tell Daniel I survived worse than bad coffee. Mateo smiled. Yes, ma'am. Then his face turned serious. 18 still breathing. Clara nodded. Keep it that way. Harper held out a folder. The final report. Clara did not take it. Did you tell the truth? Yes. All of it. Including what I got wrong. Only then did Clara take the folder. She opened it and read the first page. No ghost story. No perfect hero. No fake legend polished for ceremony. Just facts. A patrol pinned in the wash. A medic who read the battlefield. A rifle on a rusted water tower. 18 Marines extracted alive. And one line near the bottom. Failure to recognize capability due to appearance and injury delayed proper response. Clara looked up. That line will cost you. Harper nodded. It should. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she closed the folder and handed it back. Good. Harper smiled faintly. From Clara, good was a medal. Rains stepped forward next. He looked less nervous than before, but not comfortable. That was fine. Clara trusted discomfort more than easy confidence. We updated the intake brief, he said. Your line is first. Which line? Assumptions get people killed. Clara looked at him. And? Rain straightened. Respect keeps them alive. She studied him for a long second. Don't turn it into a slogan. No, ma'am. Make it a habit. Yes, ma'am. Behind them, the 2 Marines from Raider 3 stood at attention. One of them held a folded strip of canvas from the old aid station tent. On it, someone had written 18 names. Not Clara's. Theirs. The Marine handed it to her. We thought you should have this. Clara looked at the names. Mateo Torres, Evan Wilkins, James Cole, Rafael Moreno, and 14 more. 18 living names. Her hand tightened around the canvas. For once, she did not correct them. Thank you, she said. The words came rougher than usual. Harper noticed and looked away, giving her the privacy of not being watched too closely. That was another thing he had learned. Respect was sometimes attention. Sometimes it was restraint. The Humvee driver opened the door. Clara stepped toward it, then stopped and looked back toward the ridge visible beyond the base walls. From here, the water tower was just a thin shape against the sky. Scarred. Repaired. Still standing. Harper followed her gaze. We fixed the south alley. I know. You checked. Clara gave him a look. Harper almost laughed. Of course you checked. She looked back at the men in front of her. When the next person walks in slower than you expect, quieter than you expect, or different from what you trained yourself to respect, remember this week. No one answered. They listened. Clara continued. Not because I saved 18 Marines. Because you almost stopped me before I could. The words landed clean. Hard. Necessary. Harper nodded. We won't forget. Clara's eyes moved across the group. Don't promise. Practice. Then she climbed into the Humvee. This time, no one rushed to help. Not because they didn't care. Because they understood. The engine started. Dust rose around the tires. Mateo raised his good hand in salute. Harper followed. Then Rains. Then the Marines. Clara looked at them through the open window. For a second, the woman they had called Angel 6 looked tired, wounded, and completely human. Then she returned the salute. The Humvee rolled forward. As it passed the aid station, a young private stepped aside to let a female corpsman carry supplies through the entrance. He didn't smirk. Didn't block her path. Didn't make a joke. He just moved. Clara saw it. Small thing. Real thing. She leaned back in the seat and closed her eyes. At the gate, the driver slowed. "Ma'am," he said, "they're still watching." Clara opened her eyes. Behind them, the base stood in the morning dust. Marines at the wall. SEALs near the command tent. Medics at the aid station. The repaired water tower catching the first hard light of day. She looked at all of it one last time. "Then give them something worth watching," she said. The Humvee passed through the gate. No music. No speech. No cheering crowd. Just tire tracks in dust and a lesson left behind. Weeks later, the West Ridge became part of training. New arrivals were walked past the South Alley and shown why false cover could kill. They were taken to the water tower and told how one shooter held the ridge long enough for 18 Marines to crawl home. But Harper changed the way the story was told. He never started with Angel 6. He never started with the impossible shots. He started with the mistake. "We saw a limp," he told them. "And we thought we saw weakness." Then he pointed to the tower. She saw the battlefield. That was the lesson. Not that Clara Hayes was special, though she was. Not that legends walk among ordinary people, though sometimes they do. The lesson was simpler. Harder. More useful. Look again. Listen first. Judge last. Because respect is not demanded by rank, noise, or confidence. It is earned in the moment when everything goes wrong and someone still does the work. Clara Hayes never asked them to believe in her. She only climbed the tower, opened the rifle, read the wind, and brought 18 Marines home. So whenever a quiet soldier entered the room, whenever a wounded veteran moved slower than the rest, whenever a woman in a medic patch stood near the edge of a battlefield, the men of that base remembered the morning they told an angel to hide. And they remembered what she taught them. Never mistake a scar for weakness. Never. Mistake silence for fear. And never wait for a legend before showing respect.